I think that's the difference between the two. Um, and just remembering that leadership is more of a lifestyle and management is more of a job duty. I think that's the difference too at a high level.
I think there's also the relationship piece to where when you're leading, it inspires people to want to follow you.
Yes.
Where when you're managing, you're leaning on your authority to get stuff done, and people are doing it because they're being told to do it. And like you said, there has to be both, and there needs to be the right balance. Leading Ain't Easy, the show that cuts through the noise and gets real about leadership. I'm Ryan Calkins, Marine Corps veteran and founder of Reframe and Rise, and I'm here with my good friend and fellow leader, Erny Epley, founder of Bus Pro Network, as we unpack the highs, lows, and hard-earned lessons of what it actually takes to lead with character in today's world. It's not another highlight reel or fluffy leadership pep talk. We're talking about the stuff most people don't, the doubt, the pressure, the people problems, the pivots, and the personal growth that it demands. Because the truth is, leadership looks good on paper, but in real life, leading ain't easy. All right, we're back. Welcome to today's episode of Leading Ain't Easy. We had one direction we were going to go today, and we got some feedback from a friend of ours, Travis. Well, I guess he's more my friend. I'll claim him. Um,
How does that
well,
work?
I mean, I met him first.
I
I've
have
known him longer.
equal parts claim to Travis, just so we're clear.
I don't
Travis, if
know.
you're
I've known him.
listening, at least 75% me and 25% Ryan. That's where we're going to start the negotiation.
So, I'll settle there. That works.
You heard it here first.
So he gave us some feedback that the first episode sounded a little title heavy or coming from a managerial perspective. And we just wanted to kind of clarify and reiterate that it's a show based on leadership. We happen to share some managerial stories, but management doesn't necessarily equal leadership. You don't have to be a manager to be a good and effective leader. And that's really what we kind of wanted to shift today's focus on, and just go back to the beginning, reemphasize why we wanted to do this. And we're going to focus today on really kind of that leadership beyond the title and what it means to be a leader without having to feel like you have a title in order to lead.
Exactly. And if I can just real quick, I something that you said there's kind of sparked a thought. Imagine that. I do think here from time to time. But it in an organization such as the one I'm currently in and past organizations I've had the privilege of being a part of, sometimes they've been quite large, and within that sphere of agency, or the work we're trying to produce and what we're trying to do, it is the scope of work is so large that you end up splitting obviously off into teams, and then from there you need individual leaders, whether they're crew leaders, whether they're over a shop, or there's an organization structure for a reason. And even though it might not show up on the leadership, or excuse me, the organizational chart as, hey, my title is director of maintenance or whatever it is, you might not have the title, but you still need those folks in those positions to take up leadership, even if it from the crew level on up to the all the way up to the CEO, or whatever titles at the top, who is the leader of leaders. And I think that kind of that's kind of where I want to start today is leadership. I hate to say the bottom, because I don't like the I don't like leaders who, I just want to be careful about how I say this, because I don't want to say I don't like leaders, but I think it's poor leadership to point out a organizational chart and be like, I'm here and everybody else is down here. I obviously, my leadership philosophy is that we all have to do this together, and there is no bottom or top, that we're all joining for a collective goal and have that real teamwork mentality that by nature of this organization, someone has to make the final decision. However, I need people at every level ready to take on decisions that might not need to be passed up the chain that you can make in real time. When you get that kind of fluidity going, I think that's the best thing for an organization, to have that tiered leadership approach. And whether or not you have the title of manager or not, there are leaders at every level. And I'm sorry, Ryan, if I went off on a little bit of a tangent there.
No, I think
But that
that's
was,
exactly where we were headed. So
yeah, the sort of gist I got in our conversation pre-episode or
yeah. So
pre-recording.
I mean, on that point of having leaders at every level and facet, can you think of a time where you led without a title?
Oh yeah. I think it started way back in my days as a school bus driver. We were given at our one of our annual back to school leaders, excuse me, back to school meetings that we have every year prior to the school year. This is consistent throughout the industry, and we would get together and have a full day covering all the mandatory annual training, excuse me, that we had. And uh oftentimes, and I still do it to this day, we'll break off into groups and have cohorts and give like a specific sort of task or goal, saying, hey, this is the new law, how would you approach this as a driver, how do you want to feel supported, here's what we have to do, how do you want to do this? And it's I like that because it's a real networking opportunity for drivers. And it gave me the opportunity as a first place where I really kind of honed in on, hey man, I think I could do this. The little cohort that I was broken up into, they no one, there was no kind of direction. We just had a lot of ideas bouncing everywhere. And I just remember kind of saying, hey, we only have like 10 minutes and one of us has to go report out from this cohort something. I don't want to look stupid, right? I don't want to not contribute. So let's just get, I like your idea. I like your idea. And so it kind of like melded into the first moment where I could go up and of course they selected me as a spokesperson because a lot of times, not a lot of times, the number one fear amongst people in the professional environment is public speaking. And that's never been an issue for me. I'm not afraid to stand up and talk, as Ryan's kind of chuckling there a
I
little
think
bit.
it's because you're a giant and you command attention when you walk into a room.
Could be. I don't know. It's I've always felt comfortable reporting out, and it's not that I've nailed it every time. Matter of fact, a lot of times I've ate dirt in front of a lot of people, but no. So that was the first time I'm like, okay, I can do this. And when we ended up reporting out, it made an impression not only on our guest speaker, but a lot of folks in that space were like, hey man, we didn't know you were capable of this, we like what you're doing. And from there I became the kind of the de facto mouthpiece for the drivers in certain areas, in things. We were a non-union environment. So when there were things go to what's now considered negotiations, they selected me saying, hey, we want you to say XYZ, but we want to say it in a professional way or whatever, right? And so I
Hmm.
became that kind of de facto, like I said, de facto mouthpiece for the drivers. And it really kind of was eye-opening for me, and it was a good opportunity for me to say, hey, this is what the drivers are feeling, how can we come together and make this work out?
Did you see yourself as kind of a leader in that moment as it was happening, or was it more looking back? It's like, oh, I did step up as a leader and kind of use that to grow from there.
I think it was a little of both. In the moment, I felt like it was just me doing what no one else was willing to do, in that they were afraid to approach management and say, hey, this is what we need. Or they did it in a way that was completely uncalled for. I know they would just, want to bitch and moan and complain and rah, 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 rah. Well, managements at the time, even now, they're gonna see that and just say, they're crying, or whatever. They're just had a bad day and they want, when at the core of the issue is like there's some truth there and there needs to be some kind of solution met, but it's going to fall on deaf ears if all you're doing is raising your voice and hurtling insults. So I guess in the moment, I did it without realizing it, and didn't, just because I knew like, hey, we need to have this change, and management's not going to listen if we're just screaming and yelling. Right. So I think, and then some of those interactions, I would have senior drivers come to me like, hey, that's a real leadership quality. Have you ever thought about management? And so in that moment, I guess I didn't realize it until then, and certainly afterwards, looking back, I'm like, oh, okay, these were moments that that trained me to kind of molded me to step into a leadership role and a management role, right? Having the title with
Hmm.
the the body of work I put together.
But I don't know. I
What
was
about
kind
you?
of on the opposite end
Hmm.
of where things are. Like, I was the kid, in school that would spend weeks getting my, science fair project or whatever together. And then when it came time to present, I'd refuse to get up to do it and take a fucking F on the whole assignment, and it's something that stuck with me for a long time. And, I'm 42 now and just really kind of trying to focus on, continuing to build up those skills. But I was the leader that wasn't at the front,
Yeah.
as the, like you said, as the mouthpiece. It was more lead by example. I'm bringing the group along with me and doing everything behind the scenes to make sure people are taken care of. And when I would get vocal, it was when other people, felt like they didn't have a voice to speak up. I would often speak up on their behalf. And throughout my career, I've gotten feedback that people appreciate my candor and willingness to speak up on behalf of others. But a lot of times, I feel like they don't really appreciate that.
Well,
um,
I mean, this kind of go, and I know you love it when I kind of rabbit trail, but I'm not going to, I promise.
no,
But
go ahead.
that kind of goes into there's a difference between uh, feedback being taken in a way that is open and honest and accountable versus some people just don't like uncomfortable conversations and they take it very personal and take it as an attack whenever the feedback isn't just overwhelmingly positive. And if I'm being honest, like I have that too in me. Like I just had a conversation with one of my senior leaders in my current position not even a week ago, saying, hey, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I pour my heart and soul into this. And so whenever there's feedback that isn't so positive, whether it's from my staff or senior leaderships, I always have to take a second to really assess, like, hey, what is this? Stop. Because my initial reaction is just like, well, fuck you, I'm doing everything I can, you know what I mean? And it's just
Hmm.
immediately to go to the defensive. So anyway, when you said that about people not appreciating your candor, I think it kind of speaks back to like uh speaks back to that, like, hey, some people just don't like the feedback and that isn't overwhelmingly positive, and you got to remember that too, to take that with a grain of salt. And as managers and leaders, we have to lead in a very unafraid way, not in a manner that's offensive, but to understand that going into the conversation, a tough conversation, that hey, this person's not going to like this, and try and do your best to frame it in a way that produces the desired outcome.
Well, yeah, that's true. And it's in, the delivery, because when you have news that you need to get across, it like you have I worked for a CEO who was the type of person that would sugarcoat things so much that
Mm,
the message was lost. And it's like, okay, well, is there really a problem here? Because he was so afraid to tell people what was really going on. But then I've had, other leaders and managers where it comes off so condescending that you immediately shut down, so
yeah.
everything else is just, you're fighting your anger to, you know, flip them the bird, walk out, slam the door, whatever. And
Yeah.
then you just blank. So everything else is lost. And really, it's about delivering the message in a clear and concise way. You don't want to be condescending, but you want to be clear about, there is a problem here. I want to help you fix it. But again, it's the delivery, because, you talk to those people to where they'll give you a message and it comes off like there's an ulterior motive, or like they don't really
Right.
give a shit about you.
Yep.
And those people you can shut off too, and you're like, screw you, you don't give a shit about me.
No.
But it's about like really being invested in
Mhm.
wanting to help somebody, letting them know these are the problems, and working with them, not saying, oh, well, this is what you're going to do, blah 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 blah. You can't do that. But is it as
Right.
effective as, hey, John Flanagan, I just had this talk with you. He's going to be kind of
Yeah,
our de facto go-to person. You
yeah,
started
yeah.
that in the last episode.
I
So
love
now
it. I
anytime there's a scenario to use,
I didn't realize I started that. My bad.
everybody has a John Flanagan in their life. If they don't, they really need one.
Yeah.
But so you know, John comes in, you talk to him, you're clear on what you have, but then you reach out and you say, how do you think that we can go about working on this? What does success look like to you? And then if it's not there, it's like, okay, I think you can do more than that, or I think you can do better. And you get to a point to where it's not like, some performance improvement plan that is
Mhm.
unattainable and it's just a stepping stone to get somebody out the door, but it's really putting together a plan of action that stretches somebody to
Yeah.
improve, to change to get there, but the results are beneficial for both. It's for you helping this person grow, but it's also for them, whether they stay at the company or they go elsewhere. Hopefully you're getting them to a point to where they take that next step and and leap, and they're able to move forward. And that's one thing I've always done in my career is I don't care who I'm working for,
Mhm.
it's improvement for that person. And I don't say, oh, this is what I want for the company, so you stay here. I'm not, hold people
Yeah.
back so they don't grow. I'm like, dude, if you want to leave and you can grow and take your career to the next level, go do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think that kind of goes into the next point here on our agenda is what do we mean when we say leadership ain't easy? And to your point, when we're dealing with the John Flanagan, I think eh, there's going to be 10 different employees with 10 different personalities, and striking that balance. That's the part when we say leadership ain't easy. That's the part, like finding that true balance, because there is no one size fits all approach when it comes to humans, and most of our resources are humans at this point until AI takes over. Um, but so what is it in your opinion? I know, certainly know how I approach this. Um, okay, you're director of maintenance at this large school district. I'm just going to use school district because that's where I'm at.
Mhm.
Um, you have 50 different maintenance guys, all right, and 20 of them, let's say, are leads, and you have 48 sites that you have to maintain. How are you going to get the most out of each crew? Say you have 20 crews, right? And they're two-man crews. How do you get the most out of each? Right. And I think that's where the real question is when we say leadership ain't easy, like this is the part, like it takes a real proactive leader, not a manager, to figure out, hey, John's crew, they respond well to a very direct approach. However, Travis's crew, I need to butter them up a little bit. I need to say, hey, good job what you did over here, but this is what we need to do to increase our service to this, the school sites who are under your care, right, who are assigned to you. So what's your approach there? How do you figure that out?
Well, first you need to be careful because in a union environment, when you're comparing one group to another,
I'm saying behind the scenes. You're not doing this in front of them, but behind the scenes, in all in all full disclosure,
Mhm.
we have to do that. Like we have to say, hey, this team's really performing well. This one is not. And again, I'm using the school district as
Yeah.
I'll just say customers then.
Mhm.
Our customers are principals. In your case, fill in the blank. They're going to notice that, right? Especially if they're under the same umbrella or a corporation umbrella, right? They're going to say, hey, this team over here, they're cleaning 15 rooms a day. Our team's only getting 6. What's going on? And then that I have to field that question behind the scenes, right? So yes, in a union environment, I'm not going to go, hey, these principals, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Just
It's
wanted to
no,
finish that.
I mean, you're right. It's tricky because there's so many nuances, and it's there's an approach where you take one team and you have another team and you swap some members
Yep.
around to try and boost the other team, but then you risk not upsetting like emotionally, but upsetting the rhythm of that team, and now you have two underperforming teams where the hope was to take two of the strong performers and help boost the other teams. But there's just so many variables that it's tough. I mean, you're right. Like every decision that you make has a consequence, and you hope that it's a positive one.
Right. And I think to answer the question, it's you have to establish trust and establish communication with your team, right? and the leaders who report to you. So in the scenario I gave, I would say, and let me back up a little bit. When you first became, we talked about this a little bit in our previous episode about
Hmm.
coming onto new teams and becoming taking over a department. I've come in as manager as an outside. I've never promoted from within. I've always been the new guy as the manager, right? So what I learned a long time ago was someone who was coming in as my boss. What he said really struck with me when he said, "Hey, look, I know leadership requires trust and communication, right? All the buzzwords we hear, but on the trust piece, it would be really disingenuous for me to say, 'Hey, trust me,' and then lay out what my plan and goal is. Let me earn that trust, because trust isn't earned by me keeping my word on something that's convenient to me as a leader, right? If there's a situation comes up and I say, "Hey, trust me, we got this," and then a decision's made and I come through, but they could see right through. That was the easiest. Of course, you're going to make that decision, right? How are we going to trust you? Trust is earned when you make a decision that doesn't necessarily favor you, right? Doesn't make my job easier, but it's the right call to make as a manager. Hey, I'm going to have to maybe take on extra work here, but this is the right call to make. And full transparency, uh, out on the window, like coming out with that as one of the first meetings, that made me automatically gain this guy's trust. Not automatically, but you know what I'm saying? It
Hmm.
helped build that bridge there, because I'm like, okay, he's right. He's not just up here spouting a bunch of words and saying, no, trust me, it's going to be fine, right? He's like, give me the opportunity to show it to you. Give me the opportunity to prove it to you that I'm trustworthy. And stepping into leadership roles where there's already an established team in place, I've taken that same mentality and said, hey, while we work this out, while we figure out each other, while you figure out me and I figure out you,
Hmm.
let's be completely open and honest with each other and know that the only way we're going to get from A to B operationally is that we understand the goals, start there and work backwards, right? There's already a contract in place in a union environment, right? There's already standard operating procedures. There's already past practice. I might not know that as a leader coming in, but that's where I need you to provide me that feedback, right? And then not only say that, but actually listen to the feedback, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to just, I'm rambling again, but I think establishing that communication early and often, and then understanding where they're coming from, and telling them, hey, I understand, like I'm the new guy and I happen to be the one that has to call the shots, but I'm gonna need your help in here, right? Throw it back on them. Make it a team effort. Make it a team goal.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. That you've always come from the outside and had
Yep.
to establish yourself and build trust. Like I'm on the opposite end where I come into a place and I've worked my way up internally, over and over. I just curious from your perspective, being the person that has to come in and you don't, I guess you don't have the luxury of gaining trust and building, within the team. Like, what are some of the mistakes that you've made trying to step in and be that person on day one?
The biggest mistake I've made is listening to the loudest voice in the room and making a change based on that voice right away, because I
Mm,
want to earn that person's trust, or I want to earn this team's trust. A good example is when I took over, I hate take over, when I came in as management
when you
to
commandeered.
yeah, when I hostile took over a department, uh one of the loudest voice in the room was providing feedback in an environment where the whole team was there. And from that, I agreed with what they said. Hey, here's X. The problem is X. I think we should solve it with YZ. Okay, right. And in my haste and in my desire to earn that trust of the
Hmm.
entire team, I was just like, okay, yeah, we're gonna make that. And I made a snap decision on the spot to go with what was recommended at the time. And then the fallout from that was pretty disastrous because I didn't get the full scope, right? I only got the loudest person in the room's feedback, where if I had knew the full scope and knew everything that I should have been equipped to make the decision, I would not have made that decision. It ended up being a decision that really favored that person and caused rifts. It caused like, oh, he's only going to listen to this person versus just hearing us all out. And so I had to learn pretty quickly that yes, in these big environments, don't make a quick decision as great as it might sound, or as you're not always going to have all the information, and certainly not in an arena like that. Um, so do your best to make the most informed decision. And I'll tell you right now, an informed decision isn't made at the drop of a hat in your first staff meeting.
Yeah. No, that's solid. I I think coming from internal promotions where you have had the luxury of getting people's trust, learning, what people, how they react, how they are, and knowing who your go-to people and who they aren't, uh, is it's really it is a luxury, but it also is another level of difficulty because you have the people where it's like, okay, I can't trust you to do this, but there's also risk in not listening to your point of view and things that you have to
Mm,
bring to the table and saying, "Oh, well, I know that I can't rely on you, so I'm just going to dismiss the thoughts that you have." And that's also a dangerous road to go down because they can have very legitimate, gripes
yeah,
and suggestions for improvement that you run a risk of also not benefiting the entire team by automatically dismissing and defaulting to your go-to people. I think that's another episode,
yeah,
in the future on maintaining not relationships, but treating everybody
hmm
the same regardless of social connection or
yep,
anything else that you have. But being able to bring the entire team in, whether you're coming from the outside or you're homegrown, um, it's very very important to bring in all of those perspectives in order to make the entire team work better together.
exactly. And I had one question for you before we move on to our next spot in our agenda. Being that we're the opposite in when our advancements to management, and maybe this is could be a topic on its own, but one thing that I've seen whenever I've been, like, I recently promoted from within, the supervisor that answers to me, and that I lead, um there's the biggest challenge I've seen is going from friend to supervisor, going from coworker to boss. Can you kind of take me through that? How um, you might have been the leader before, right? But now you got the actual title. What's that like? How do you navigate that?
It can definitely be a challenge because you get it's not complacent, but you get, that
Hmm.
that familiarity. And it's like if you and I are working together and I'm like, "Hey man, I need you to do this." And you're like, "Yeah, I'll get to it." And I'm like, "No, dude, like I really need you to do it,"
Hmm.
and we're like close and we're friends, but it's like, when stuff needs to get done and you go from where we're buddies to now it's like, "Oh, don't force me to have to pull rank," like.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where the first time that happened to me was right after I got promoted to corporal in the Marine Corps. And on our we had rifle qualifications, so on our off weeks we were able to kind of sit there and play Madden for a few hours when no one was around. And it was getting towards the end of the day where we needed to wrap everything and clean all of our office space. And they just kind of like blew me off, and I'm like, dude. So I ended up being in a position to where I had to pull rank, and it's like, I need you to do it because I told you to do it because blah blah blah. And I felt like absolute shit after, because
Yeah.
it's like I never wanted to have to be that person that has to rely on my title in order to get something done and like flex that
Hmm.
authority, and it's like I talked to them after and like I apologized for it because I felt guilty, but I also let them know it's like, dude, it didn't have to go there. Like you've put me in that position to have to do that, and it's like I'm not gonna dismiss our friendship or anything like that. And I
Hmm.
don't expect that to change, but also don't be the reason that it has to change. Like we can still
Yeah.
be cordial, but when it comes time to get stuff done and work, it's like I'll be there with you doing it. But I need you to
Yeah.
respect what I'm doing when I ask you. And I've been able to kind of take that learning experience and grow from it and adapt like throughout my career to make it a team thing where I can establish my authority without having to flex my authority, you know? And I don't know, it was an eye-opening moment for me. It's something that, you know, I don't think you ever don't struggle with that
Right.
kind of thing when you have somebody that you're close with and you've grown together and now you're, you know, in that position where it's like, okay, well, I do dictate you. I am giving you your performance reviews. But from that earliest moment to where I felt like I had to flex that authority, I've been able to grow and make it clear that you know, this is what it is. Our relationship isn't going to change. When we do have these official settings and meetings, I am going to be, you know, the person wearing the hat in that moment that needs to get stuff done, and I need you to respect that.
Yeah, that's and I'll just say one last thing to kind of put an end cap on that is even in my role now in senior leadership, that's the last thing I want to do. The last thing I want to say is, listen, this is a directive. I am the director of this department. This is the direction we need to go. If I'm going to answer to the community, the school sites, the Board of Education, this is the direction you need to go. You either hop on board the train or hop off, right? And I've never had that
Yeah.
conversation, but that's how they hear it, right? When I start issuing directives and saying, even asking the question, are you being insubordinate because I'm signing work within your job description and you're telling me no, right? Like
Yeah.
that's got to be last. And so many times I've seen in this industry, in my industry, and I'd imagine it's everywhere, where new leaders come on board and their first thing that's their go to rather the last thing, and it's not going to work.
So right
That's a
there, when
big
you said when
pitfall.
new leaders come on board, do you mean when new managers step in and the first thing that they do is try to flex their authority?
Yes, I've seen that a lot in both managers that I've had above me and colleagues of mine. Just
Mhm.
I've seen it's a common trap that most people kind of stumble over. Nah, I shouldn't say most people. That's being too general or too specific. It's more general, but yeah, you got to remember, especially if you're going to step into a senior leadership role where you're leading leaders, man, they already get it. Chances are they've been doing this for 30 years and you're going to come on here and, you know, want to flex on everybody. And I've been this and show your titles and all your degrees and everything. Like, okay, bud, whenever like your approach should be, listen, I can't do your job. You can't do mine, but together we got to achieve this common goal. And here, you know, I just think it's good. You're going to catch more flies with honey than you are vinegar
You
at
know,
the end
we
of the
talked
day.
about that last episode where
Yeah.
a lot of people come in and they flex
Yeah.
on the get go because it's like a confidence thing and you're trying
Mhm.
to overcompensate. But then other times it's like, no, that dude's just an asshole, you know?
And there's definitely a balance though, because you do need to come in with enough. I don't know if authority is the right word, but come in with enough confidence and that you're not going to be a pushover either, because you still have to, by the nature of your title
Hmm.
and your position, you still have to hold people accountable. We still have to get the job done and treat everybody fairly and not ensure that one group is overworking the other one, like, you know. So it's again, I think today I've said it twice now, is finding balance and striking that balance uh with how much you're gonna put your foot down and how much you're gonna let slide, because that's inconsequential. It's an ego thing. I don't need to be you know, defensive about that, 'cause whatever, let that shit slide and we're gonna go on to what's important.
So what we do agree about or agree on, I guess, is leadership is not a title, not your place
No.
in the org chart. It's not your pay grade. It's how you come in. It's the influence that you have, the responsibility that you take on, and really stepping up when other people need it or need direction.
Yeah, and that kind of answers one of the questions that we asked each other even before starting this podcast. Like, who is this for? Is it just for people who are leaders or have a management title? No, it's for everybody. Aspiring leaders, people who are leaders without the management title, you know, just people that are just starting in their career, maybe a new industry, maybe
Hmm.
they're you know, have a change or whatever. Um, Understanding that true leadership is it's a symbiotic relationship. I had a veteran driver show me an illustration earlier of the org chart, and he said, "Look at this org chart." And of course, it was shaped like a pyramid because, as most org charts are, he says a lot of leaders think that each level below them are holding them up whenever, and he turns the org chart upside down. He said, whenever it's more like this, right? Where you're supporting us, you're holding everything up here. And I was like, I'll take it one further. And I kind of turned it portrait. I'm like, it's both. It has to go both ways. Like, I'm certainly here to support you and hold you up and give you the tools to succeed, but I can't do that without you supporting me with your hard work, right? It's that whole, it's a circle that comes around every time. Like, I was honest with this person. I really thanked him for that illustration, because it's something that's really stuck with me. But it's, man, the harder you work for me, and I'm not saying like increased hours or anything like that, just doing your job, honestly. But the harder
Mhm.
you work for me and the more you're consistent within your work, the more it motivates me to keep on, hey, yeah, let me give you that support. Let me talk to this parent for you who's, you're having trouble, or whatever the case may be, right? I don't want to get too specific, but
Mhm.
not that I shouldn't do that in the first place, but it does help me in my job, knowing that, hey, this person is doing everything they're supposed to do. They're going, they're following the steps, 1, 2, 3. I need to just reinforce that, whatever that looks like, right? So that sort of that symbiotic relationship that takes place with the really well-oiled machine. And every place ain't going to be like that. And again, I've been in my current leadership role for coming on 4 years now, and we're still figuring that out. And I don't know that you ever
God,
get to
has
the
it been
peak of
4
that.
years already?
Yeah, it's
My
crazy.
God.
It'll be 4 years in January.
Wow.
But just I think giving yourself some grace too as a leader, in your own mind, when we talk about this mentality that we have as leaders, is understanding that there's never going to be a peak to that mountain. You're never going to climb the Everest of leadership and be like, okay, made it. What next? It's a constant state of improvement and a constant state of
But when you get to
evolving.
the top, isn't that when you start going to the golf course and everybody else just works?
You- well, some places do operate that way.
That's how you know you finally made it?
I don't golf, so I just come home to podcast.
So for
uh,
you, you talk about, the symbiotic relationship and your
sure.
relationship with people. What would you define, I guess, as the difference between managing people and leading people?
I think both are needed in when you have the title of supervisor, manager, director, whatever it is. At some point, you're going to have to manage your resources, and our number one resource is people. Um, and at some point, you're going to have to address the many fires that pop up, and I call them fires, not literal fires, but the many things that hit your plate throughout the day. I think the difference really in managing and leadership, although you do both things, they're two very separate job duties and functions. I think management is just that, managing your resources, your time, your money, your people. Leadership is providing them with the tools they need to succeed, whether that is a pat on the back, hey, you're doing a great job, or whether that is, hey, you're doing a good job in this area. I could respectfully, you could improve a little bit here. Let me show you how to improve that area. Let me give you the tools to succeed. Maybe you weren't getting to this location on time because the route you were on is terrible. Let me fix that. Let me go to the dispatch team and talk about how we can improve that. Right. And again, I don't want to use like two specific examples
Hmm.
in my daily job, because I really want to keep, my daily work and this podcast separate. But so apologies for that disclaimer, but that's, I think that's going back to answer the question. I think that's the difference between the two. Um and just remembering that leadership is more of a lifestyle, and management is more of a job duty. I think that's the difference too at a high level.
I think there's also the relationship piece, to where when you're leading, it inspires people to want to follow you.
Yes.
Where when you're managing, you're leaning on your authority to get stuff done and people are doing it because they're being told to do it. And like you said, there has to be both and there needs to be the right balance, but you can absolutely have a manager that is a horrible leader. I want to say you can have a leader who is horrible at managing. I guess you can.
Mhm.
Like you can have somebody that you want to follow and they inspire you, but they're also shit at managing, you know?
Yeah,
So I mean you can have both. So like you said,
yeah.
there is a need for both to be an effective manager and an effective leader. You have to have the balance of both, but you can absolutely have those people that are in managerial. It's, oh, do this because I told you to do it, and they're actually shit leaders that nobody wants to follow.
Yeah, and one thing I do wanna mention, like, I'm not coming at this from a place of got this shit all figured out. As a matter of fact, without, again, getting too personal,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a place right now where I'm still trying to figure out why isn't something working. Again, I don't wanna get specific, but why isn't this working?
It's because you
Why
haven't
am
asked me
I
yet.
why I can't afford you. I can't afford your consulting fees. No, like, why am I on this side of the equation, meaning why am I more a manager right now and I don't feel like a leader? And I don't know that feelings are everything, but they certainly are a good indicator of especially if you're looking introspectively on
Mm-hmm.
the state of your team that you lead. And that's, again, just being kind of open and honest with you right now. Like that's not, I'm not coming at this, especially on this podcast, as someone who thinks they fucking figured this out, because they haven't. I haven't. Um, and just being open and honest, like I'm at a point right now where I'm still trying to find that balance. I About 6 or 8 months ago, you would have asked me, I would have been like, yeah, we're balanced, baby. We're managing and we're leading. We're kicking ass and taking names. Right now, I'm like, oof, I feel like I'm just managing. I got to be a better leader, you know? And so certainly don't take this as I've got my shit figured out, because I'm still learning myself. Just a caveat.
No, I like that.
Yeah.
What
And we'll
are
have to, oh, sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. No, yeah.
No, I was just gonna make a dumb joke about using you as your consulting with reframe and rise. I say reframe reframe and rise. Yeah, yeah. You're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to charge. You're gonna have to charge me for the counseling session here pretty soon. And number one on the agenda of our counseling session is getting the name of your company right.
Hey, I'm definitely not using you as a promotional speaker for me.
You'll sell nothing. I'm
So
sorry.
what would you when it comes to like misconceptions about leadership, um what kind of when it comes to feeling like you need authority in order to get anything done or have people follow, or you have to be a certain age or have a certain title. Um when it comes to some of those misconceptions, what I guess advice or anything would you have for new and upcoming leaders?
Knowing that you can be a great leader exactly where you're at, whatever level that is, whether it's entry level or final level, right? Y- Focus on that. Focus on being the person that gets the job done and gets the job done correctly and within the scope of everyone's job descriptions. Um, I think if, for the most part, what I've seen in industries across the board is eventually you're going to shine through, whether it's at your current location or whether you say, hey, I think I've hit a glass ceiling here. I got to go on to greener pastures elsewhere. Or I think I can advance somewhere else. If you consistently put good games on tape, and using a sports analogy, people are
Mhm.
going to notice. You're going to become undeniable. And I would advise folks to just keep your intentions pure, meaning like, of course, you have to have ambition to become a leader, but don't be blinded by it. Have the right ambition to point that in a way that doesn't just promote me by tearing others down, that there's a real desire here to make our work life better, to make our environment better. And you can do that at the entry level very easily. Um, I say very easily. You can start there, right?
Mhm.
getting rallying the troops, getting folks together, keeping the if it's something as simple as telling a joke every day. I had an entry level position person that I was managing, and I would consider this person a leader. They just retired, but because of the pure and simple fact to say, hey, he would always say, hey, we're here for 40 hours a week. We might as well enjoy each other and like each other. So he had a real big personality and would break up tension in obvious areas by being funny and so it's something as simple as that can be a real, a good attribute to have as a leader. So again, without rambling too much, just be undeniable, be that person, be Johnny on the spot, do your job, as Bill Belichick says. Do your job, do it in a very effective way, and share that with your teammates. And again, your work will shine through, and maybe not in your current environment, but it will eventually. You'll break through.
As you were talking, I was thinking about a future episode that we could focus on that has to
Nice.
do with helping people that are showing leadership, but in a way, because there's a lot of times where you have your peers, right? And a
Hmm.
manager tells you, "Oh, I need you to step up and do this and that and that," but there's no. I'm not going to say an official announcement or anything else, but it's not
Sure.
like they go out of their way to make it clear that they've asked you to do this or anything. So you go to your peers and you try to get the stuff done, and they're like, "Fuck you, I'm a director too," or whatever. And it's
Right.
like, why, you're not my boss, or and it's
Mhm.
having that expectation or stuff put on you to step up, but then not necessarily giving you the help to do it. And it's such a critical thing that's going to require more
Mhm.
time than we have right now. But it's something I want to come back to because I've experienced it, but I've also had to help others in similar situations step up. But learning from my own experiences where I got zero support in having to try and do that, I was
Mhm.
able to take what I learned and really help put people in positions to succeed and grow.
No, that's a great topic. Definitely dive into future talk. I love how we are just essentially making more work for ourselves as we talk and ramble. We're like, another topic, another topic.
Yeah, I mean, if we run out of topics, we have no show. So,
I love it.
so how do you how would you looking at the mindset, like a leadership mindset, how
Mhm.
does a mindset potentially hold people back in their growth?
One that comes quick to mind is, I don't get paid for this shit, so I'm not going to do it. Right? Having, expecting the instant gratification for the work you're putting into. And this has again opened up a huge can of worms here, but
Mhm.
what really understanding what your motivation is for this. Why are you wanting to do XYZ? Is it because you have a true desire to see this company succeed, or is it that you have your own ambition and your own pocketbook in mind when you're doing this? I think the mindset of me first is a killer for growth. You
So
you
you're
have
talking
to.
about the people that want instant compensation for any additional responsibilities or above their standard
Correct.
job. Okay.
Correct. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I do things that are outside the scope of my job description, and I should be compensated for that. I'm not saying that at all, like that people shouldn't be compensated for that kind of thing. However, if it's for the betterment of my teammates, if it's for the betterment of my fellow directors, I'm going to go above and beyond, and I'm going to do that because in my heart, I have a true team mentality. Like, this is going to make their life easier. And if it makes their life easier and I only have to put in an hour, maybe on a Saturday or an hour or two, like, I'm going to do that. That's who I am as a person. I love supporting people. I love it when people say this about me, say, you can count on Ernie, reach out to Ernie, he'll get it done. Like, I, I want that to be my motivation, not necessarily I did extra, so I deserve extra.
Okay. So you're talking. So you have the people that literally don't want to do anything outside of their job description unless they get compensated. But the sweet spot is doing that, going above and beyond to help people, that's more selfless, and it does help you grow. It gains the respect of everybody else. But then you have the other extreme, to the people that don't want to go outside their job description, are the ones that you step up a little bit and now you get permanent additional responsibilities, yet you're not getting a raise, you're not getting a title. So now this person is being taken advantage of because they're doing, a job and a half and still receiving what they were before. So finding that sweet spot of
Mhm.
stepping out, having that selfless leader mentality, and doing things to not to make yourself stand out, but it's like you said before, with the game tape and standing out,
Mhm.
eventually people
Yep.
are going to notice. And when you put yourself out there, people do see that. But
Yeah.
you don't want to be so rigid that you're not willing to do it, but you also don't want to get taken advantage of.
Right. And this is what kind of goes to what we were speaking of earlier. If you start doing that extra and doing that job and a half, like you said earlier, a good leadership team is going to see that. And they're either going to, whether it's a union environment or not, they're going to negotiate how to compensate you for that,
Mhm.
whether that's a title upgrade or whether that's a pay upgrade, whatever it might be. And then it befalls on the employee to be like, okay, I'm not getting that here. I'm hitting that proverbial glass ceiling. So maybe fire up the resume and look for something else. I know that it's much more nuanced than that, but as we navigate this career and as you navigate your trajectory on what your goals are, you need to be able to move in that kind of way as well. And in a perfect scenario, your manager sees that, and if they're in an area where they can't promote you, maybe offer them some other kind of compensation. Maybe, hey, you know what? I'll take over your job. Go home at noon and don't put off anything on PTO, right? There's always some way you
Mhm.
can award that kind of behavior if it's not going to come through in a monetary way. And also as a way to that doesn't make it feel like you're favoriting that employee as well.
So what is one practical thing that somebody listening could do tomorrow to lead, regardless of their role and title?
A practical thing that they could do to lead, start learning everyone's job. Start
That's good
learning
advice.
how to, because that's how you support, right?
Mhm.
Like I want to, hey, pull your boss aside. I love it when people come to me and say, "Hey, Ernie, how do you do this? How do you balance the budget? How do you XYZ?" Man, again, you know me, and you know me. I fucking love to run my mouth. I love talking to them, and then I get a chance to say, hey, they give them a little peek behind the curtain. Hey, this is how I do this. This is how I do that. Right? Learn everyone's job so that you could then be Johnny on the spot. And then you could be that person to support the company's goal, the district's goal, whatever, wherever you're at.
Dude, that's better advice than I expected you to give.
I'm glad that you're, that you're, uh, I love it.
So how do we keep reminding ourselves that leadership is about action and not about position?
Okay, so let me digest that a little bit. How do we keep reminding ourselves that leadership is about action and not position? Um, your outcome. Your outcome is number one. Like, and I'm not necessarily meaning profit loss. I'm not talking, you know, your own personal,
Mhm.
compensation. Outcome of our product, of our customers. Looking at that and understanding that I need to do something here because our outcome sucks. And I have the position of leader. So therefore it befalls upon me to take action to change that outcome. As a reminder, always keep your eye on that bottom line, and whether that's a financial bottom line or whether that's a customer bottom line, whatever it is, keeping your eye on the goal that you set out to meet every single day. For me, it's easy. Getting kids to school safe and on time, right? Keeping my eye on that. If that starts falling off, then action's got to be here, and it doesn't matter. And it just so happens to fall upon me as director to understand this. But if I can communicate that same goal and that same vision to my team, then we all have that shared goal and shared vision. And when kids aren't getting to school on time or they're not getting there safely, God forbid,
Mhm.
regardless of position, we all can take action to correct that because Ernie, the perfect version of Ernie out there, has shared this vision with us, and we've all bought into it. So my role as driver, I can do X, Y, Z without having been told. So I don't know if that answered the question.
I don't know if it did. That seemed
I'm
more
sorry.
positional. I guess I don't know. I guess what I was getting at is by action, regardless of where you're at,
Hmm.
leading by example, doing
Hmm.
everything doing what's right, treating people right, helping others, being
Yes.
selfless. It's all of the things that help to build relationships and build trust that people can rely on you, because when they can rely on you, they open up and then you can rely on them. And it's kind of, that relationship, the symbiotic relationship that you mentioned earlier, it's
Yeah.
how you foster that is by those selfless acts. And one thing I've always done is that I won't ask somebody else to do something that I can't do myself, and if I am
Classic.
able to help them out in the moment, it's not beneath me to do a job that I've done or help somebody out. It's like, oh, well, you're down there, you surf, and I don't know.
Pleb.
It's just it's one of those things where I think constantly showing up and doing it is, that action piece, and you don't have to have a title to support somebody and be there and do things the right way and not be condescending. And it's always about, I will say that I have gotten in trouble by being too selfless, that I don't focus on
Mm,
myself enough
yeah.
to where it's like, other people are having trouble and I fall on the sword. Not that I am some, big sacrificial whatever, but
You white knight,
it,
you.
it's gotten me in trouble a lot. Like I grew up with that, military mindset of we keep stuff in house. So when things happen, I don't say, "Oh, well, John Flanagan did it, you should be talking to him." It's like,
Yeah.
"No, I did it. It's on me. I'll take care of it." And then I go have the conversation with John in private, and I let him know, like, "Hey, man, I did this, but this is what we need to work on, blah, 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 blah." And it's about action. He's like, "Yeah, dude, thank you, I'd be fired."
Yeah.
But it's like, "Oh,
Well,
I'd be fired."
that kind of speaks to leadership 101 though. Like if you've got to answer for everything that happens in your department, then it really is on you. Like the
But there's a lot
you
of
know?
people in positions that don't do that. It's like, "Oh, well, Ernie fucked up. Go have the conversation with him. That's not on me."
Well, he's on your team.
Well, right.
That's
But you know what I'm saying? It's like
No, I hear you.
you have
I
to
hear you.
want that
Yeah.
leadership. It's like, okay, this is my team. I will take the heat for it, because if they
Yeah.
screw up and I didn't prep them, or whatever, it's any team that I've ever gone into.
Yep.
It's like, you know, dangerous minds. Just wipe it clean. It's like you all have an A starting today, and I don't care what has happened before, because I haven't told you how to
Right.
do this, or I haven't told
Right.
you the way that I like things, and you're not going to know the way that we're going to do it and how I'm going to hold you accountable. So for me to come in and say, "Oh, well, you didn't get along with this last person, so you're a complete piece of shit," and you're already on my hit list. So when I have gone into places and it's like, "Oh, would you want me to give you the skinny on so and so?" I'm like, "Nah, I don't need it.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
want it."
No, exactly. It tends to poison, and you gotta, like you said, clean slate.
I want to give everybody their own
Yeah.
chance to fuck up with me.
Yeah. So tell me, Ryan, what's our listener connection like? How do we bring this home and make it practical for those who have made it this far into the episode?
I think when you have a moment to step up, whether it's at school, work, with your friends, whatever it is, be that the person as we've talked about the entire episode, that supports others, that steps up when people need you, you know, and not just when you feel like you're needed. It's when people actually need you and they can rely and trust on you. Step up, you know, if you've been in a position where you've had an opportunity to lead without a title or even with a title, like, we don't
Yeah.
care. Like, let us know. You know, we'd love to hear your stories about kind of adversity in leadership, whether it's with a title or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I want to kind of reiterate what you said. Share those stories with us. I'd love to include them in future episodes. You know, talk about them. Hey, John Flanagan emailed into us and said this is his moment he shared with us, and either parse out some advice or just, hey, this works. This is a tried and true method, and it's not just us two idiots up here saying it works. This is someone else. You know.
Yeah. And we really hope that you walk away knowing that there is a difference between management and leadership, but you need to have a balance of both. It's not about barking orders. It's
Yeah.
about not being afraid to screw up. Like, you will make mistakes, own it, move on. Other people see that and they grow with you. And we wanted to make today a focus on really clarifying who we're trying to reach. And it's not managers, it's people that are trying to learn to lead, that are failing, that are growing and continuing to show up and emerge. And what we want to focus on, I think next episode is what we talked about in kind of loneliness in leadership, to where, you know, you have your friends, but you're in a situation where sometimes you're on an island. Like, you have to make difficult decisions. And next week is going to be a focus on kind of that feeling of loneliness when you're stuck in a position of being on that island.
And being that that's our next topic, I will be completely open and honest. That is the scariest part of leadership for me, because I am a very social creature by nature. I love being surrounded by friends and family. Um, so again, not to just already dive into the next episode, like, just to give a little bit of teaser, this is it's gonna be really close to home for me, and there might be some tears, so I'll need to grab some Kleenex.
Get
Yeah,
your tissue boxes ready.
yeah, you're about to see a big ugly dude cry, ugly cry too. I'm talking like,
We're going to see a handsome dude ugly cry.
uh,
All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap today and reconvene next week for episode 3.
yeah, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Until next time.
Leading ain't easy. I said it and you didn't.
Thanks for tuning in to Leading Ain't Easy. If something in today's episode resonated, please do us a favor and share it with someone else who leads or aspires to lead. Because honestly, none of us have this figured out, but we can all get better together. If you're a leader or professional feeling quietly stuck in your career, visit reframerise.com. It's a career and leadership coaching firm where I work with veterans and other high achievers to realign their work and lead with purpose. Again, that's reframerise.com. And if you're looking for leadership tools, training, or support for your transportation department, check out Bus Pro Network, where Erny helps school transportation leaders across California build safer, stronger teams. Please subscribe wherever you listen, leave a review, and let us know what topics you'd like us to tackle in the future. And remember, leading ain't easy, but you don't have to do it alone.